What dominated the Ranchi test match? India's win, Shoaib Bashir's bowling, or was it the umpires? Out of the three options, 90% of you will say it was the umpiring. And in particular, this particular sequence, umpire's call, 4 decisions went in favor of England with the umpire's call bit. Be it Akashdeep's dismissal, be it Rajat Patidar's dismissal, Shubman Gill's dismissal, even Ben Stokes for that matter got a reprieve due to the umpire's call. But this came about in the backdrop of Ben Stokes calling for the umpire's call to be eliminated. And Virat Kohli 3 years earlier had stated umpire's call causes a lot of confusion. Michael Vaughan has questioned the integrity of the people who are operating the Hawkeye system. And now Paul Hawkins, who is who's the founder of the Hawkeye technology, he has spoken out. And he's cleared a lot of doubts on the Joe Root dismissal. He's also revealed a shocking thing as to why umpires never wanted the DRS in the first place. You would not want to miss this, because the Joe Root dismissal, it is egg on England's face all over again, especially to some former cricketers, because they stated on Joe Root's dismissal, that LBW which he got to Ravichandran Ashwin, there was a fair section of the English media who stated that, oh okay, it is pitching outside leg. How it can be pitching outside leg? How it is pitching in line? No, it is pitching outside leg. Wrong call made by Hawkeye. But then Paul Hawkins, who is the Hawkeye founder, he gave a very clear statement on that. He added, tracking showed that it must be 1 millimeter more in than out. Because otherwise we wouldn't have said that it's pitched in line, but it is a very, very close one. Hawkeye's founder himself has stated that it must have been 1 millimeter in rather than out. So that is why the computer has picked up the data that is there. Looking at the tracking projection, looking at the pitch map where it was, so it pitched in line, just about. But it was a close one. We all stated that it was a close one. But on Root's dismissal now, Hawkeye's founder himself has stated that it must have been more in than out. But it was a close one. He did admit that. But the next is the clincher. Hawkins himself has revealed that umpires never wanted the DRS in the first place about 5 to 6 years ago. What happened at that point is, the then ICC chief at that time, Dave Richardson, he had a very, very hard task, because the then ICC chief Dave Richardson had a tough sell to the umpires. There was technology that was going to come. It was going to eliminate the howlers that was rather prevalent in international cricket at that time, about a decade ago. Now, Dave Richardson at that time had a very difficult thing to tell to the umpires. He said they had to tell them, this is only for big errors. It is not against your competency. Umpires were against DRS coming in. They didn't want to be shown to be wrong. Remember, when DRS is, the whole process is launched, it comes on the big screen, umpires are under scrutiny, and then the umpire's decision, if it's there, if it's withheld, if it's not, it's overturned. This was the initial thing that the umpires never wanted in the first place, because they didn't want their mistakes to be glaringly visible in the public eye. But then, after a lot of selling, this was the statement which ensured that DRS would come into cricket only for big errors. That was how DRS came. Otherwise, the umpires and the entire umpires committee were against it. Now, the original umpire's call bit. We all mentioned, right, it happened from the World Cup itself. Pakistan were crying over it, England have been crying over it, India, if it suits them, have been crying over it, have not been crying over it, but if it doesn't suit them, they also say that adds confusion. But Hawkins has clearly explained what is the original umpire's call bit. Original umpire's call areas were modeled the way that umpires were evaluated at international level. So there was a heavy testing that was done on the DRS technology. Simulation was done, umpires had to do it. Now, based on the data that was done, based on everything, they had to come up with an equation that gave them a margin for error. Because It's in cricket only where you have to do a projection once the ball has bounced. So if they had gotten an LBW wrong, they had that margin of error. Now, technology, if you look at every DRS camera that is there, and even if you look at the replays that are there, what is the one technology that is ailing the sport? And a camera that eliminates the parallax error. Now, for the parallax error, no camera has ever been invented. So, that is why whatever were the evaluations done after thousands and thousands of rounds of testing, they then came up with the umpire's call bit, okay, to eliminate the margin of error. That was the thing. Umpire's call, that's why becomes legitimate, because okay, you don't know 0.5%. For me, visually in the naked eye, it may be missing, but technology may prove okay, it's just clipping. So, okay, it's a 50-50 decision. So, technology makes this easier. But on the other hand, as far as accuracy is concerned, a lot of people are saying, oh, Hawkeye isn't that accurate. He stated, we are a lot more accurate than the size of umpire's call area. So, accuracy factor, he vouches for his own technology to be very accurate. That's why it's been there for close to a decade. Hotspot, remember, they had big problems with it because of the friction factor and also because the angle of the sun. If the camera was placed in such an angle, the sun, if it came on that, it would blur that entire thing because of the heat factor. So, friction and heat would be subjective. If you start from scratch, but this is one very important point that he maintains. If you start from scratch with the technology, is there a reason for the umpire's call? Probably not. Even Hawkeye's founder is admitting to a certain extent that yes, because technology is such, there is no need for an umpire's call. But most of the sports, he points most of the sports, it would be a definitive out or not out. Just like tennis, just like all the other things. Umpire's call is the only thing in cricket which adds to a certain level of confusion for most captains, because you are accounting for a 0.5 percentage error, 0.5 to a certain very minuscule percentage error. Naked eye and simulation in technology is very different. No umpire can get a decision 100% right. In order to ensure that it doesn't become too much, the umpire's call factor has come into. It's a projection that is there. So, that is the reason. Now, he has suggested rather that okay, in tennis, you can move the graphics so that it is easier for the viewer to understand. The same can be done for cricket also, because what he explains, Hawkeye is also used in tennis, remember, to determine whether the ball bounced just outside the playing area. Now, in tennis, we shift the bounce mark just for the presentation perspective. So, a 0 millimeter in becomes a 1 millimeter in order to enable the viewers to see the mark. Now, remember, if it's a very close thing, 0 millimeter out, they just shift it by that +1 or -1 millimeter percentile. And because of that, viewers can get a better option about it. If it's a glaring error, fine, then it's there. But for very close situations, there is a +1, -1 millimeter error margin that is there. Even in tennis. Can it apply in cricket? Very difficult at this point. So, there is a mixed perspective on technology. Paul Hawkins, who is the founder of Hawkeye, he himself has stated that yes, we are accurate. Umpires were reticent about it, and Joe Root, it did pitch in line. But as far as whether you need an umpire's call, he himself has said probably not if you want to start the technology from scratch. Because in other sports, definitive out, definitive in. That is the way you look at it. Do you agree with the statement? Because it's a very technical thing about technology that Hawkins has explained. I have tried to simplify it and make it easier and get the relevant points to you guys. So, do comment about what Hawkins said about the technology. Do you agree with it? Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this video. We'll be back with more updates on sports today. Tap that bell icon so you know when we go live, and don't forget we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. Bye-bye.